Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is August 3rd, 2010, which means it's almost my brother's birthday. His birthday's August 11th. I'd like to wish a big happy birthday to my brother like a week and a half in advance, but time for Day 9 Daily 158. For any of you who are newcomers, this is the Day 9 Daily where we look at replays of good players, bad players, just replays of Starcraft 2 in general, and think of ways to be a better gamer. Less of the tournament blabberings and sort of screaming. If you want that, God, you should just tune in to me on the weekends. But today we're going to be analyzing a nice, wholesome game between HuK and a guy named Silver. I mean, not a name that carried over from Warcraft 3 or Starcraft that I know of, at least. Almost certainly not Starcraft, because I like the idea that I know everyone in the Starcraft community. But this was from the recent Intel Extreme Masters qualifier, or ESL. And Silver just crushed a lot of good people. Now, okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to hold my hand up. And as I'm holding my hand up, this means there are spoilers up. So that way when I put it down, you guys can unplug your ears. Are you ready? Here comes the spoilers. Okay, Silver beat Idra 2-0. He beat QXC. And then in the finals, he's facing against HuK. Okay, the spoilers are gone now. And so these are the games against HuK. We're going to look at Game 3, so that way you won't know the results. I actually don't know the results of the series. I've only seen Game 3. And we're going to look at Silver's kind of funky, unorthodox style. Well, I guess I wouldn't exactly call it unorthodox. I'd call it a nice evolution from kind of what we were seeing in the beta, which is people just trying to find the right mix. And now we're starting to see him play around with things like cool unit movements and some really nice timings and relying on micromanagement to pull ahead in specific situations. So, very fancy stuff. But of course, in other awesome news, I made a velociraptor noise yesterday that, as it turns out, was like 8 times louder than my actual speaking. So if you'd be so kind, go watch Day 9 Daily number 157. You can find that on my archives at day9tv.blip.tv. But man, because I screamed into the microphone, it was so loud, and I rewatched it like 100 times a day and giggled to myself. So you should check that out. And of course, I'm playing StarCraft 2 single player. Oh, it's so good. I am getting 100% of the achievements. All of them. I am not getting an achievement. It's so cool. Like playing on Brutal, some of those missions I have to replay like 50 times. And then one that was, it's the one where you have to kill your enemy in under 25 minutes. Try not to spoil the single player for anyone who hasn't done it, but you have to win the mission in 25 minutes to get the achievement. Windows automatic update kept being like, we're restarting in 5 minutes. So I was having to like tab and like close that and open up StarCraft 2 again and like keep racing away. And then right when I beat it, I was like, yeah! My computer cold restarted, and I was just like, oh, I was kind of cutting it close. But then when I opened it back up, had the achievement. Thank you very much, Blizzard, for supporting the cloud that keeps track of my achievements when my computer decides to crash. Strong. So, without any further ado, since I've eaten my coffee cake, which was delicious, we are going to be going into, apparently, my banner. No, we're going to be going into the game. Fantastic. So this is Silver, a player who I do not know very much about. There he is in the top right position of Kulas Ravine. And here is our superhero, HuK, who was, of course, invited to the King of the Beta tournament, where he managed to take games off all the top players. And he's just, very, 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 very good, in case you didn't know anything about him. Yeah, and he always does this spam crazy rally all over the place, one of his trademark moves. But, Kulas Ravine, kind of a weird map, especially in this particular matchup, because of these high ground areas, and, I just want to make sure that my sound isn't screwed up. It should be. No, I need to drop that quite a bit. There we go. Oh my god, when things started... turn off the music. Yeah, these are all these sorts of things that happen when you play the single player. I realized that I was kind of cutting it close today. I was really playing very close up to the line, up to like 640 I was playing, and normally I start setting up at around 620, so... Whoops. But either way, Kulas Ravine, kind of a weird map, largely because of these cliffs, because you see the Xel Naga watchtower, and you're just like, oh yes, please, I want to put a tank here. Oh yeah, you want to put a tank here, and you see the Xel Naga watchtower, want to put a tank there, that's great, obviously these are good things, but I think the huge things that are really going to affect gameplay, as opposed to be eye candy, is this back expo is really the first place you want to be taking as Terran or Protoss, just because this ledge is so obnoxious. If a Colossus gets up here, if any air unit gets up there, if Vikings get up there, if tanks get up there, if things get up there, it can really ruin your day. And considering we've seen a lot of players do early robotics facility plays, that can be potentially very dangerous. And of course, we've been seeing mech a lot from Terran, so again, very, very dangerous to do that. So we do see a lot of aggression, a lot of one-basing strategies come up early as a result of this ledge overlooking your natural. Also, look at how wide open this is, no high ground advantage. Look at how wide open this is, no any concave advantage at all. Look, the attacker is the one with the concave. He can sweep along at this angle, and there's a little tiny ball of units that will get crippled pretty readily there. But either way, we see a very fast Marine, a very fast orbital command from HuK. We see him chrono boosting his probes as usual. Here is, you know, the gateway, gas, cybernetics core, getting that as quickly as possible. Everything seems pretty ordinary. And of course, any of you playing the Sean Plot tally game, anytime I call anything normal, you can put a little check there. I do have my tendencies. And one of those, I would like to upgrade it to me scrawling like a velociraptor. Yeah! Anyway, so we have the tech lab going down, and already, ooh, we see a little bit of aggression coming up from Silver. This is something that is not too typical of players nowadays. Generally, you see players going for an early expand or trying to tech, but ooh, we have some very cool, exciting stuff coming up. Now, interestingly, Terran has not yet scouted the Protoss yet, and already this is kind of a little funky. It looks like Silver is actively moving out to the center of the map, and especially for aggression, there's always this sweet spot that I call it, where you can get there pretty quickly. So for instance, let's say you're tank pushing, you could probably walk to, I would say, about here or up to here pretty easily. But if you're tank pushing from here into your opponent's natural expansion, that's going to take a long amount of time. Protoss is going to battle you right in this region. So it's so important that you start closing distance early on. Because let's say you're doing a tank push, so you have your army here. If you start pushing and Protoss stops you here, well, you haven't gotten to the sweet spot yet. You haven't gotten to the place where you really want to begin your push. You have to cover this whole distance. And if there's a giant Protoss army in the way, it's going to be slower. So the same is true for these Medic Marine armies, or should I say Marine Marauder armies. I've been playing the single player, and let me tell you, I've won every single mission with nothing but Medic Marine. That is just the sweetest thing in the universe. But yeah, look, already actively moving. Going to make sure he can close off some scouts, and wouldn't be surprised if his other stuff starts moving there quickly as well. 2 Barracks play, getting Marauder up fast. Gonna start making Marines out of this. And of course, I did want to again emphasize the fact that especially if you're new, and especially, you know, if you're like me and you've been coming fresh off the single player where, you know, you have a lot of time and a lot of freedom, there's this kind of mindset that a unit producing structure should either have a tech lab or it should have a reactor. And if it doesn't have either of those, then you shouldn't be doing anything with it. But really, I want to emphasize how long it takes to build a reactor. 50 seconds? Oh my god, that's like 2 full Marines. So if you have 4 barracks without reactor, you can get 8 Marines out by the time when your reactors would almost be finished. So what does that mean? It means if a player attacks at a key period and you built reactors instead of making these Marines, you are suddenly 8 Marines short. That's gigantic. That's really cripplingly bad. So, and also, a lot of times you don't even have the money to necessarily support a reactor. So a lot of clever players have been experimenting around with just having a unit-producing structure without that add-on for a majority of the time it's actually producing. So for instance, Braddock, when he plays Terran, does a similar style where he gets 1 starport, just producing medevacs, slowly, surely, no interruption. Also got to give credit to HuK. He's throwing his pylon down here, completely far away from the opponent's base, but it's hidden. It's a little bit unusual of a spot, but it means that he can warp in and harass this expansion, or if Terran decides to expand here later in the game, brilliant. More players should really start doing that. And of course, HuK doing the smart move, advancing to the Xel Naga watchtower. But what is Silver doing? He's trying to get control of as much space as he can. He's trying to advance forward. Look at how aggressively he's moving out. And now this is not necessarily an attack. This isn't him just saying, well, I'm going to rally to his base and just go for the win immediately. But instead, it's just Silver getting in a good spot so he can begin advancing earlier, because he's already completed, you know, half the distance. So more units being made. We've been looking at Silver almost exclusively and not really paying too much attention to our Protoss superhero HuK. He is going 2 Gateway Stalker with Warp Gate. Very normal opening. A lot of Protoss players love this, because the Stalkers, even though Marauders are good against them, if you can get enough Stalkers and you can pick these Marauders off, you're obviously going to be in great shape. And if you're ever in a huge bind, you can always start throwing down Zealots and Sentries. But you always want to have some Stalkers there to do the picking off. And already, ooh, this is kind of cute by Silver, trying to set this up, and it doesn't look like HuK has managed to spot it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, because this looks lucky. A lot of players will see this and they'll be like, oh, Silver actually just luck box his way to the win, he doesn't deserve it. They get very angry and type inappropriate things. But notice the role of this bunker. It's to allow Silver to poke up, do a little damage, and poke back. And there's a lot of similar looks to this, not just in Starcraft 2, but in many, many other games, where you have like this core setup, this impenetrable part, and then you have part of your army that sort of skirts up and draws units in. Starcraft 1, very simple examples. If you have tank siege and you have some vultures, what do? You run up, you pick up the vultures, and you try to scoop units back. For Protoss, if you have a Colossus, it can walk over your army, zap units, and pull back. But the Stalkers, Zealots, and Sentries are what really are going to be keeping you alive. These sorts of things are very, very important just to see the similarity there. Because a lot of people will look at this and say, oh, I guess I must build a bunker if I can get away with it. But I want you to just see the way that Silver exploits this, how awesome this is. I'm going to open up this resource tab so we can actively see it. And Silver is going to just try to pick off these top edge ones, just picking it off and then pulling right back, just trying to get a little bit of disorganization. And this is what we saw right there. This is a golden example of 1A syndrome. Look, all the Stalkers, or I guess 2A, are in one control group. You really got to be careful to be arranging these extremely, extremely well, because HuK manages to micro and save another one. But increasingly, as players start doing little exploits like this, where they're trying to poke at you, it's so critical that you are very good at, picking this Stalker and scooting him to this area to the right or so. And look at Silver, not going to get over-aggressive, not going to over-commit. Oh, it looks like a Hellions here. But the Hellion, again, same role as these Marauders. It's trying to scoop units back into the bunker. Now, pretend for a moment that this bunker didn't get placed here. You heard me say, you probably look at this and go, ooh, he's so lucky. And don't worry, you don't sound like that, but that's just the voice I use. Even if a bunker were placed here, or even a little bit farther forward here, say Terran secured a little concave with an early force and set them up outside the front, planted a bunker, and the Stalkers were here, could still maybe come along the edge and pick some Stalkers off and try to scoop those back. So some very cool play. And meanwhile, what's HuK doing? HuK's doing the intuitive play. He's getting Immortals, he's warping in Zealots and Sentries to deal with these Marauder numbers. And HuK was in quite a bit of pain even bringing some of these probes up. I don't think that was completely necessary, but HuK manages to close it off. Now, before this dies... Oh, first of all, yeah, way to go, HuK, that's awesome. Now, before this dies, we always want to note what's going on back home. Oh, look at this. Silver spent the time building up a reactor. Oh my god. Silver managed to get a stim pack. Now, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to rewind this replay a little bit so we can see what's happening. Yeah, spoils a little bit. Kind of gives you a hint at the length, but this is really important to do because a lot of people will just see this attack, wrap up and go back and ignore all the stuff that Silver was doing back home. So we're going to speed things up. And what did you hear me say right at the start of the daily? You heard me say, oh my god, I want to emphasize how dangerous it is to get a reactor. You have to have the time available to get a reactor so that you don't die. So let's see, when does Silver get that reactor? Well, we see the bunker going down. I still have this barracks selected. So we're going to slow this down just a little bit. So see, look on the mini-map. Here's all this action, look at all this stuff scooting to the left, and hey, here's a reactor going down. Hey, here's stim going down. Stim and reactors, examples of great upgrades. I mean, you want stim, you want the reactor, but you need the time and the resources to be able to do it. Classic problem a lot of Terrans had very early when Starcraft 2 beta came out is that they tried to just get stim too early, and they tried to get too many reactors too early, and they would just die to any early attack. But here, we're starting to see, oh, there's more clever ways to help us stay alive. Oh, look at this. Remember this part where you heard me say, oh yeah, look at Silver doing some nice micromanagement to help pick off these Stalkers. I'm glad I spent a full, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know how many minutes I spent looking at that, but it's good I spent some time focusing on that micro right there, showing that this